2020 has been one hell of a year. It has changed all of us in more ways than one. For me, well, 2020 made me a furry. Hey y'all, I'm Austin and this is Sad Boys Anime. As I'm sure you can tell, we're talking about Beastars this week. I know I'm late to the party here, but to be fair, the next season is coming out next month, so this is the perfect time for y'all to go check it out. If you haven't seen the show, nothing I say is gonna spoil it, because I really think that everyone should check it out. If you have seen the show, don't expect this to be going too far into every single aspect of the show. Listen, I had a mental block keeping me from watching this show. Maybe it was being unsure about the use of CG animation. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't embraced being a furry. Maybe it was Haru's face. Okay, it was a little bit of all of those. But once I gave in and watched it, all of my fears faded away. The excellent writing and world building led to a fantastic story, with all sorts of deeper meaning and hidden secrets that pull you in. So, let's talk about what those are. To start off, what even is Beastars? Well, at its core, it's a story attempting to answer the question of how would an integrated animal society work. It's written by Paru Itagaki. Have you ever seen a mangaka do this? This is even better when you realize that this is a character you actually see in the anime, and I just think it's hilariously relatable. Okay, so like the story, right? You have carnivores who by nature want to eat herbivores and have to learn how to control these primal desires. How do they learn? Well, it's pretty much just boarding school. They separate all of the kids away from adult society and teach them how to be adults. There are other animals that don't have human-like sentience, such as fish and insects, that are used for food or taken in as pets. Everything down to the way the chicken characters produce eggs for consumption is thought about and explained in a creative way. I'm sure at this point you're like, okay Austin, we get it, but what's the actual plot? Well, as I'm sure you can guess, a handful of carnivores go rampant and kill herbivores. The first instance that we see was at the school I mentioned. An alpaca from the drama club is killed and the murderer is still on the loose. We experience most of our story through our main character, Lugosi, who is a gray wolf. He was friends with Tem, the alpaca who was killed. Lugosi is struggling with the loss of his friend and the fears of losing control to his carnivorous impulses. One night, he does lose control for a few moments and attacks our other protagonist, Haru. This awakens carnivorous instincts in Lugosi, and he has to desperately try to hide them. This is a dilemma because this leads to a desire to be in a relationship with her as well. It's where things start to get really interesting. The dynamics between Haru and Lugosi is what really drives this show. The contrasting character tropes of a mentally strong but physically weak rabbit and a mentally weak but physically strong wolf challenge the stereotypes about the characters. You would expect for the smaller creature to be timid and afraid, but Haru, despite her constant harassment, stays strong in the face of adversity. I don't generally like to ship straight couples, but these characters are so sweet and cute that it doesn't feel weird to me. I'm all for it in this show. Lugosi is such a sweetheart and he's defying his own nature and what society thinks of him to be with someone he really cares about. I think I like this so much because this is a very queer ideology. Not the defying your nature bit. Being LGBTQ+ is natural and amazing. I'm talking about the society rejecting you part. One of the most basic concepts of queer theory is challenging the idea of a heteronormative society. It's already taboo for different species to be in romantic relationships in this world. But having a relationship between carnivores and herbivores is almost unheard of. It's shown to be something that is a fetish and only there because the primal desire of the carnivorous instincts. This may be a stretch to y'all, but for me, this idea is almost mirroring the idea that being gay inherently means being sexual, and that we shouldn't teach this to children. I mean, think about it. LGBTQ+ folk are constantly being fetishized, stereotyped as perverse, and seen as a danger to children. For Lugosi, as a carnivore, he's considered dangerous and is taught from a young age that he has to repress those instincts, even though it's natural for him. I don't want it to seem like I'm saying gay people are going to attack you, because that's not at all what I'm getting at. I'm just showing that these theories are fitting in with this show and making me realize why it stands out so much. It's hard to apply human ideologies to these characters, which is a part of what makes this story so unique. If you look at something like Zootopia, the characters are depicted in a much more human way. They may be animals, but the message is directly paralleled with one that works in our world. This is actually taking away from the story it's trying to tell, because it doesn't always make sense for these animals to be experiencing human-like issues. In contrast to this, Beastars is its own thought-out universe that has rules and expectations set inside of it. Because of this, the show gets to explore its core concepts on a much deeper level. This girl thought up a whole world to rival that of Zootopia's entire studio of people. To be honest, I was reluctant to even compare these two at all because they're very different. But it's the only other mainstream piece of media that goes over this sort of idea, so I kinda had to. I mentioned that Lugosi is defying his nature as a carnivore, but didn't talk about Haru doing the same. As an herbivore, she is meant to be weak and innocent. She decided that she wouldn't do this, and every single day works to avoid her instincts. When watching the show, you even see her struggling not to run away from Lugosi, especially when they're first getting to know each other. Her body literally wants to run away from him. Later on in the show, when they're starting to form a more sexual relationship, her body moves her arm to his mouth. Her instincts are trying to tell her that he is going to eat her and that this relationship is not a good idea. Beastars has one of the most mature commentaries on sex I have ever seen. You immediately get over the fact that these are animals. This show knows animal sex is going to be really uncomfortable for an audience to watch. Like, out of context, that sounds super weird and you're like, no thank you. But the way it's handled is actually really good and it's not as awkward as you would think. I know I told you I'm a furry at the beginning of the video, but I don't want to watch actual animals fuck, y'all. It's not like that. It's uncomfortable to watch any kind of sex scene, much less one with animals. I thought I would get a lot of secondhand embarrassment, but it just never happened. I kept seeing that scene of Haru stripping out of context and I was really worried, but in actuality, there was no cringiness to it. Also, it wasn't excessive. It's only there to advance the narrative and give extra depth to the characters. Haru wants to be seen as anything but the fragile, innocent creature that her species is seen as. When she's writing the goodbye letter in her mind and thinking about it, she's saying her life still had meaning, and that even a weak, defenseless rabbit has a reason to live and a meaning to their life. Tell me that's not the sweetest message in the world. It's really showing how strong she is mentally. Despite this strength, she knows that most people only see her for the dwarf rabbit traits. The only way she was able to challenge this was by being more promiscuous. This leads to bullying and conflict from other characters, but she just ignores it all and continues doing what she wants. To contrast this, Lugosi has never had a sexual relationship before. It's to the point where there's a misunderstanding between him and Haru on this front, and he actually covers her up with a blanket and runs away out of embarrassment. It's a really cute scene and it shows you the type of personality that these two characters have. Part of the personality working for me is due to the three-dimensionalness because we get to hear inner monologues from our main characters. I watched this in Japanese with the English subs and y'all, it was so beautiful. I know this is dubbed over in English and that's totally fine if you prefer to watch it that way, but for me, the Japanese voice acting took it to a whole new level. The poetic nature of the way the words are written paired with the way it was spoken was done so well. The voice acting gives an air of quiet introspectiveness to the overall show in a way that the English dub wasn't doing for me in the same way. It's not just the main characters that all have thought out personality though. All of the supporting characters are unique and intriguing in their own way. Legosi's golden retriever friend is adorable, and the way that he knows him so well is a sign of a true friend. He knew immediately when something was off with Legosi, and was willing to give him the space he needed to let it out. Instead of being afraid of him or aggressively prodding him, he was happy for him, and believed that his friend would ask him if he needed help. Another character we have to talk about is Juno. She's there to be the contrast to Ruiz and the conflicting love interest to Haru. She's the obvious choice, as she herself has said. She's smart, charismatic, and a wolf the same as Legosi. Despite being jealous that Haru is drawing Legosi's attention much more than her, she doesn't seem like that much of a threat. The way her jealousy is depicted is actually really respectful for what it is, and it's tied into her strong personality. She wants to become the next Beastar, which is kind of like the council of high representatives in this society. If she was just being petty, it would seem as though she wasn't capable of getting that job. She always has a reason for the way she acts and the things she does. She's very good at bringing people together and taking lead when she needs to. Her willingness to work with others to bring them together is very different from how Ruiz leads. He leads by pulling an "I'm not like other herbivores" card, but in this case he can actually justify it because of his backstory that you find out later on. He was really raised to be in this role, and it's important for him to be seen as the stoic and unstoppable figure. He will do whatever it takes to achieve his goals, and that's what makes him so special. On an unrelated note, something that stood out to me was how there were so many details in the environments. It makes them feel thought out and lived in. The two that I remember off the top of my head are the drawings Legosi has above his bed in the dorms, and how in the school there are small doors next to the big ones for the various sized students to use. They don't have to explain this concept, it's just shown to you and you understand. It's a sign of a good story when they know exactly what to explain and what to show. As an example of an explanation that was done well, the black market scene is one that stood out the most to me. It's not obvious at first what this place is, but the introduction of having this guy offer up his fingers for eating in exchange for money serves as the perfect setup. As soon as the rest of the market is revealed, the characters realize this is how the adult carnivores can be so calm. This is interesting as well, because they are being taught to repress their inner carnivorous selves, and once they are released into the real world, they actually do have this option available to them. To bring it back to queer theory, this is similar to the idea of repressing your queerness and being taught that it's wrong, and being able to express yourself and live comfortably once you're older and living on your own in the world. You get to explore and understand your queerness in a way you weren't able to before. One last thing, since I have been applying queer theory throughout this video, I can't help but point out the heavy use of bisexual colors throughout the show, especially centered around Legosi. Also, the way that Ruiz and Legosi interact feels very queer to me, but I won't talk your ear off about all this. All I have to say is bisexual Legosi is my headcanon. Have you watched Beastars? Do you like Beastars? Are you going to watch the new season? Have you read the manga? Let me know in the comments. Remember, I post every Monday, so look forward to more content. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed. Happy holidays, everyone, but more importantly, happy Halloween.